we've given you the charges, and we're here to formally announce the charges of homicide by vehicle, 5 counts, and 2 counts of recklessly endangering, and some summary violations against Alfred Moore, 64 years of age, for causing the deaths of 5 individuals on June 27th of this year on Manheim Pike. A terribly tragic incident. As you know, the facts in this case result in those deaths and serious bodily injury. A brief summary of the investigation of what it revealed was that on that day, Mr. Moore was driving a Dodge Caravan for a taxi company in Harrisburg. He had picked up someone from Harrisburg Airport, was in the Lancaster area, and according to the fare, Mr. Brito observed Mr. Moore driving in extremely erratic fashion and excessive speeds, to the point where he demanded to get out of the taxi for fear of his own loss of his own life. He did that on Manheim Pike, about a mile from the crash, and actually within a minute or so heard the crash take place up the road. What had taken place at that time was Mr. Moore continued on his drive up there on Manheim Pike, and swerved into the opposite lane of travel, killing 5 people on 3 separate motorcycles and causing serious bodily injury to 1, Dennis and Amy Wilhelm, ages 43 and 50, Sam and Linda Lapp, both age 48, Joshua Pennington, age 27, and Kristen Scowood, age 26, suffered serious bodily injury, was fortunately able to survive. And it's as simple as that. He swerved into their lane of travel and killed the 5 of them instantly. The motorcyclists did not contribute to their deaths. They were all wearing helmets. They were all driving in their lane. They were all driving within the speed limit. And actually, at least two of the cyclists tried to take evasive action to avoid the van and their fate. But the way the crash occurred and the way it unfolded, and we've outlined that in the affidavit, it killed them. What we found out through the investigation was that Mr. Moore's diabetic, and one of the reasons for the delay between the incident and today was that we had to get the medical records, and then we had to have a medical review of those records. As a diabetic, he had to watch his blood sugar level and the corresponding potential effects if he did not watch that and eat regularly. One of them could be that he would pass out and lose the ability to have physical control, as all diabetics face. On that particular day, he indicated to the police that he had breakfast at approximately 8:30 in the morning, and to different, I guess at most, a candy bar somewhere early in the afternoon, and this of course took place about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So he essentially had nothing, very little or nothing to eat of consequence from 8:30 till 5, knowing his diabetic condition. Now, one of the things you have to keep in mind with homicide by vehicle charges is that these are not intentional crimes. The standard is recklessness. There's no allegation, nor do we believe by any stretch of the imagination that Mr. Moore intended this terrible outcome. And nor is he charged with anything that would reflect that. It goes along with the responsibilities of being a driver and the standard of recklessness. So once we knew his diabetic condition and of course the horrible results that we had to do legal analysis. Cases like this don't come up that often, fortunately, but we did have some similar cases to look at involving epileptics and also diabetics. And essentially what the courts have come down to in cases like this is whether it's foreseeable. Whether it's a natural result or something that's unnatural and completely unforeseeable. And they also look, of course, to see whether someone was aware of their condition. They look, obviously, there's a difference between somebody who's an epileptic and has an epileptic seizure that results in a crash, but didn't know they were epileptic and didn't know they were subject to those type of things, as opposed to somebody that's aware of their condition and knows what the risks are and then chooses to take them or not based on their condition and the actions that they decide to do. So in this particular case, we also had to obtain Mr. Moore's medical records and his history and his background, and of course see whether he was aware of his condition or not, because it was critical to our legal analysis. In this case, Mr. Moore has been aware that he's been a diabetic for 15 years. He knew that of the consequences of failure to eat and to monitor his blood sugar, that he had to eat regularly and consistently and substantively in order to keep his senses and avoid passing out or going into another type of consequence from being a diabetic. In fact, in particular, what stood out for us in this case was that he had been hospitalized in Harrisburg approximately a month before this incident for low blood sugar, and clearly not only did he know from for the past 15 years he suffered from diabetes, but he'd had an incident that required hospitalization just weeks prior to this, again enhancing his awareness of his condition and the dangers of his inherent with his condition. So that's the evidence that we had, and based on that evidence, in consultation with Penn Township Police Department, we concluded that there's no doubt that he made a conscious and reckless disregard to maintain his medical condition, which led to these terrible results. Mr. Moore was aware of his condition. He was aware of the inherent risks of his condition if he did not eat, and he chose to take the risk. The result is that 5 people are dead and 1 is seriously injured. I want to remind everyone, of course, that Mr. Moore is presumed innocent. Again, he's not charged, and we are not alleging that this was an intentional act by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, Mr. Moore has been entirely cooperative with our investigators throughout the proceedings. My understanding is his bail was set at $50,000 by the district justice last night. I don't know whether he's posted it. I know that if he does post it, our obvious request for a bail condition would that it be he not drive whatsoever. I guess I would like to add, of course, that the family members, surviving family members and friends of these victims, we offer our condolences for this tragedy. There are no winners here today making this announcement. It's not going to bring them back, but we have a responsibility, just as every driver on the road has a responsibility. I want to thank Penn Township Police Department for their work, the crash team, Lancaster County crash team. Rodney King's worked long hours on this. Assistant District Attorney Todd Brown has been directing the investigation. I want to thank him. Of course, Dr. Diamantoni, our county coroner, gave us a lot of medical advice and assistance. And of course, thanks go out to those first responders who would have had to see this terrible scene and deal with it out there. I'd just like to emphasize before wrapping up here, and I'll take questions, as we go into Labor Day, a traditional weekend for a lot of driving, everyone who gets behind the wheel of the car has to remember that there's a great responsibility that goes with driving. All too often, we don't think about it. We just jump in the car, run an errand, but a vehicle is a deadly weapon, and it's unfortunate that incidents like this remind us of those dangers and the risks that we all must accept the responsibility for when we're driving. In particular, in this case, he was a taxi driver. He drove people for a living, and he literally had his fares' lives in his hands as well as the other people on the road. We have to take it seriously. You have to have your senses about you and the ability to physically control a car, or you need to just not do it. And if you have conditions like this, medical conditions that require eat or medication, please take those medications, please eat, and if not, call somebody else that can do it for you. We can't have results like this, and this is about as sober as a reminder that anybody could possibly ask for. I guess I'll just end by saying, unfortunately, he knew the risks of his condition. He chose to take that risk, and now we're left with this. We have 5 dead, 1 person hurt seriously. Countless lives of the survivors have been ruined, and a community's been devastated. So we'll let the criminal justice system proceed from here, and I guess we're open for questions.